So hello and welcome. It's just gone 12 o'clock. It is week 7 of our 10-week programme. Who can believe it, eh? Only 3 more, I say 3 more weeks. Of course, we've got 3 more weeks of class. And I think then there's about 10 days to actual Christmas. So there's a little bit of a breathing space before you get to enjoy your Christmas festivities. So last week we made the decorated pillar candles. So I'm not quite sure if you can see it over on my side there. That I've brought my candle back in just to remind you, those of you who weren't able to join me live last week, that is the candle. And I've been really impressed with the work that you've been posting in the Facebook group. It really, really lovely how you seeing how you interpret the projects each week based on what you've got. And probably this is a really good time to say that I send out the workshop sheet in advance of class, and I know I'm getting some feedback that you're always a bit nervous about what I'm suggesting that you buy, because it's not always of course I can't tell you absolutely what I'm going to do in class next time because I don't want to spoil the illusion. You know, I want to create a bit of air of mystery, so it's kind of get that right balance between the materials you need, giving you an indication of the kind of thing we're going to be making without totally spoiling it and then making it pointless coming to class. So don't know whether you've ever noticed, but in the handout, some of the words are underlined, so they are hyperlinks. So if you click on the words, they'll take you through to Amazon. So even if you don't know what I'm using next, for the next class, you can click on it and a picture will come up. So you don't need to buy shopping these links. By clicking the link, it doesn't mean you've purchased. You still need to use that buy button on Amazon. But it will give you a picture of what it is I'm talking about. And with all these things, it doesn't matter if you don't bring to class exactly what I say. Sometimes I change my mind. I wrote the course programme, well over 10 weeks ago, and sometimes I can't get hold of things. And I'm just being distracted by the message that's come up. So it's about adapting. So, it's like in an ideal world, you could bring these things along, but it may be, like some of you do, you like to watch what's happening in the class and then just smiling again at Jane's lovely comment at the bottom of the page. And sort of feel your way, really. So don't feel that, I can't come to class one week because I haven't got exactly what I need. Come and see what we make. And that's the beauty of coming live to class, because you can get a flavour of what everyone else is making and creating afterwards. So you can, just have a go. Use what you've got. Don't feel you have to go out and buy. Don't feel you've got to go and shop in Amazon. At least that means if you click on the picture, you know what I'm talking about. You can see whether you've got something else at home you could adapt. So, why not use one of your kitchen implements or something like that, or a vase or container you've had, around the house for ages. But equally, it means if you've got a favourite craft shop, you like going to a favourite garden centre that sells flower arranging supplies, then that you're buying the right thing that I'm suggesting that you buy. So as we're talking about things to buy for next week, we're going to be making what I've called a cinnamon box. And it's a rather fancy title for what we're going to be making. And we're going back to flower foam. So those of you who've been on class for a while will know what the flower foam is. And those of you who are going foam free will need to think a tiny bit creatively. So we can talk some more about that in the Make and Create session afterwards, if you want some guidance as to what to bring instead of using flower foam for next week. I should say this is for next week, don't panic for the moment. This isn't what we're using. So conventionally, when you've got a block of flower foam, the eagle-eyed amongst you will realise that's not a whole block of flower foam. For some reason, I've shaved a section off it. I must have been demonstrating for class or something. It's just the first bit of foam I found. And it sits quite nicely in one of these funeral trays. So again, if you're not a flower arranger or a florist, it's this kind of lingo that might put you off. The funeral tray is a plastic tray that exactly fits a block of flower foam if you hadn't already shaved a bit off the edge. But you don't need to go out and specially buy one of them. The thing is, you've got a piece of wet flower foam and you just set it on your countertop, you're going to have water oozing everywhere. So it's the whole job of this tray is to be quite discreet and to catch the drips. If you don't have or you don't want to go and buy something plasticky, I'm thinking I've got a butter dish, and the lid of the butter dish would make quite a good container for my flower foam, but it's quite small. It's not as big as this. It's only sort of about that size. So I could always cut down my block of flower foam to make it fit my dish next week. Or equally, if you want to get a bit more modern with the way you're looking at things, how about doing away with a tray entirely and wrapping your flower foam up in cellophane? So then you need to go and buy cellophane for one class, or what you could do is use a sandwich bag or cling film, something like that. So I think probably that is the way I'm going to go next week. I'm not going to use this, although I will show you how to use that. I'm probably going to wrap my flower foam up in cellophane and then bind it round with tape in order that it holds firm. I haven't got this sort of loose floppy bag going all over the place. And then you'll need some cinnamon sticks. Now I must admit, I found it quite hard to get cinnamon sticks. I don't know what sort of luck you've had. I've only been shopping online there because, as you know, I rarely leave the comfort of my own kitchen. So the thing about buying online as well is you think you're buying online, and I've bought cinnamon sticks at a wholesaler before, and I know you get about a kilo bag and how much they cost. So when my cinnamon sticks arrived this week that I'd ordered, I thought, oh, they're the right length. I chose long ones this time. And then I only got about 20 in the packet, so they did work out quite expensive. I bought these long ones because I thought I was going to be really fancy. So what I might end up doing is, again, raiding my stash, and I've also got shorter cinnamon sticks. They're about half the length. And the length that you need depends on the height of the flower foam you're going to be using, or how high you want to come to create your dramatic effect next week. Now, if you can't get hold of cinnamon sticks, think out of the box. So perhaps kebab sticks could do the same job. They're going to be really tiny and really fiddly though. Or sticks from the garden. So rather than going knobbly and gnarly, I would say from the garden, you kind of need a consistent thickness and size of stick, preferably straight up and down. Now I'm just looking out of the kitchen window and I can see that we've cut back, we, the royal we, have cut back the peony in our garden. I can see that the stems at the bottom of the peony just look really great. So I could be, diving into the compost heap and getting back the stems that were cut back from the peony. Or if you've got willow or dogwood, they're lovely straight stems. So you might like to think you'll need enough stems, spoiler alert, to go around your flower foam. So you will need quite a few of them. And I wouldn't necessarily pre-chop them to length, because I think you need to see what I'm going to do first before you commit to a specific size. And the other thing, if you want to sort of take your design up a level, is to bring some cardboard with you. We're going to, the easiest way to attach your sticks to create this box is going to be gluing them onto a piece of cardboard. So what I'm thinking here, again, try not to make it too difficult for you, an empty cereal packet. Perhaps you've been ordering online and you've got a nice sturdy cardboard box. So think about a strip. We're going to make a sort of template out of 2 sheets of cardboard, which are going to sit over the top of your piece of flower foam. So actually you might end up with something that's a little bit longer than your piece of flower foam, rather than being a really tight box, although that is perfectly acceptable too. So basically we're going to be gluing a little fence of cinnamon sticks around the edge of your flower foam, and then doing a smattering of Christmas over the top. So in terms of what are you going to put, do you want to use fresh flowers, fresh greenery, entirely up to you, or do you want to resort to your Christmas bling and your pine cones and lotus seed heads and that kind of thing? So it's entirely up to you. So again, this next week's about technique, and the decoration at the top is almost a sort of secondary thing, which probably won't take you very long to do at all. So I'm going to move those out of the way, cinnamon sticks out of the way. And what are we going to be using today? So today we're going to make an Advent crown. I'm calling it a crown, but you don't actually wear it on your head. Although I do think that all our traditions worldwide are all interlinked, aren't they? And I have a feeling that the Danes make crowns, and perhaps on St. Nicholas Day, which is the 6th of December, I think, that they do wear crowns with candles in them. So if I follow a lady in Denmark, so if she posts about that, I'll try and make sure I share it in the group so you can see what I'm talking about. So the crown we are making is going to be a circular form, not to be worn like that. It's going to sit on the table and have candles in it. And through the Sundays of Advent, you'll be doing the traditional thing of lighting one candle each Sunday. So I am going to use a straw-based wreath. I haven't made this myself, I've bought it, and it's quite, I've had it a few years, and the binding around it, I don't know if you can tell, it's got a bit fluffy and the straw is starting to fall out a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to show you is just a bit of DIY, and I'm going to go over this with another round of string or twine just to hold it in place. It may be that you've got a polystyrene wreath base. And the reason I say that is those of you who've been coming to class for a long time will remember back in the spring that we used a polystyrene base. And when I bought mine, they came in a pack of 2. We used one in the springtime. So again, if you've got one of those that's left over from your springtime arrangement, you can use that today. It doesn't matter either way which one you want to use. We'll still create the same effect. But with the polystyrene one, you will need to cover the whole surface with your decorative materials. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a rather unsightly, the white polystyrene around the edge. Whereas I'm thinking, can I get away with not covering the whole of my wreath form? Because the natural look of the wreath isn't too hard on the eye. So I've got my wreath. We're going to be using the pinning technique again, which we did with our pomander balls. So I've been to the garden and I've got some bay leaves. You could be using ivy leaves, something quite robust. And I did have a few of the leaves left over, the stachys, the little bunny ears, the lovely velvety bunny ears that I used for my pomander. So that's really great. And then I have got, look at this, I've got some pearl-headed pins. And I thought, oh, perhaps some red ones will look really seasonal. And I spent this morning sorting out my box of pearl-headed pins, which were just multicoloured. And I've put my red ones on the top there, so I know where they are. But inside the box, I have got just a box now of the sort of sewing pin type of pin. So before that was full of all sorts of stuff. And of course, every time I went to pick one up, it was the wrong one that I had. So that's the pinning element. You'll then need some candles. So I have got 2 kinds of candles today. I thought, yes, I know there's only 4 Sundays in Advent, but I thought, why don't we mix it up a little bit and bring some designer skills to the table? So I've got some taper candles, which to attach onto the wreath will need some little legs to hold them in place. I'm going to show you 2 methods for doing that. One is probably, if you've been arranging for a while and using candles, you'll be very familiar with, which involves hot tape and some sturdy floristry wires. And the other one, if you cast your mind back to last week when we did the decorative pillar candle, is to use a sturdy candle, a sturdy wire. And then I've got another candle going, trying to keep it out of the way so it doesn't give you too much glare, and also out of the way so I don't burn my elbow. So I'm going to show you a way of attaching your candles by heating up the wire to create those little legs or the roots of your candle. The only thing to bear in mind, and I will probably remember to say this again, is that you're going to have your candles into your wreath, and whatever method you use, you don't want your wires from your candles to come out. Sounds obvious. You don't want them coming right the way through your wreath form, because I'm thinking, I'm just going to put this direct onto my tabletop. You have got the option, you could put it on a charger, but I just don't want to have wires poking it underneath, and as I move it around my table, it's going to be scraping lines in it. And anything wreath-based, you just run your hand underneath once you've finished, you'll soon discover if you have poked in your wires too far and they're coming out the other end. I've got a box here, container here just of my Christmas bling. I've got some glittery balls. I'm thinking I might not use those. I might go really, really pared back. But the reason I've got the little red pins is I found some decorative holly and some stems that actually were left over from my live class in Canterbury last week. And I do like to have a rummage in the bin when everyone else has gone home. We can use those for class. So you've got the 2 items that I've forage from the dustbin will be making an appearance. And then for that design element, what is the design element? Well, that is, I thought, wouldn't it be fun to make some little holders for the tea lights, the night lights? And we're going to do that using the Oasis aluminium wire. So again, those of you who've been coming to class for a while will remember we did a whole section. This must have been right back at the beginning of lockdown. And we made floral jewellery. Do you remember we made brooches, rings and necklaces using this wire? So we're going to, you'll recognise that technique if you came to this class. We're going to use a technique to create a little candle holder out of this bendy wire. So this is all optional. If you want to just have 4 candles, just keep it neat and nice, that's perfectly fine. But if you think actually, I'm a bit fed up with candles, want to do something a little bit different, you could do the tea light version, or I think I might just put all the candles in it and just light multiple candles as we count our way down to Christmas. The other thing I've got is my floristry scissors. I've got some washi tape. This isn't vital at all, but I'll show you what I'm going to use that for. And I've got some pliers as well. So these have got a little bit of wire cutter part because I think the wires I'm going to use are really, really strong. I'm not sure my scissors are going to be up to it. And also because I'm cutting my wires really short, I don't want to be holding my fingers really close to that lit flame. So I thought I might get all like a surgeon about it and hold on to my wire into the flame so I don't burn myself. So that's the roundup of what we're doing today. I'm going to bring the camera over. Like last week, it's all going to be quite close work, and I think actually my camera overhead gives a better picture quality when you're watching back on the video. So if you have got any questions, you can either save them for the live Q&A afterwards, or if you want to type them in the comments of the chat box, as soon as I see them pop up, I will endeavour to answer you live on the video. So let's go and bring the other camera in. So options for wiring up your candles, give them these little feet in order that they can have prongs to be wedged inside your wreath form. So probably if you've been arranging flowers for a while, you will have used this technique before. I'm taking a floristry stub wire, I'm cutting it in half, using the teeth section in my scissors, and then I pinch it in the middle and then bend these 2 legs back, and it gives you this sort of hairpin look, hair slide, hair grips. So that would be one way of adding legs to your candle. And then you would take your pot tape, and I normally start a tape off just to get myself going, and then I lie one of the pieces of wire underneath the tape, come around, and I'm going to use 2 wires, which are going to be 4 legs, and I've put them opposite each other. So I hope that is clear for you if you haven't tried this before. And then I just go round again just to hold everything in place. So you'll notice here, I've tried to be as neat as possible. I've tried to go as low down the candles as possible. I haven't gone right to the bottom just for me, because my candles are slightly tapered at the bottom. They don't go straight up and down. So if you had candles that were totally straight, you could possibly go a tiny bit lower than I went and have your tape around the bottom here. And I've just tried to hold the wire in place, but not climbing, traveling too far up the candle. And the reason for that is that when you come to put your candle in your wreath base, which should have this nice crunchy texture, it will hold firm. You can see there that it's standing proud. So whenever you put your greenery in, you're going to have to make sure you have something bushy that disguises all of this. So that is why for this particular style that I'm going to do today, I want to go quite minimal, quite pared back, that I fancy using a different technique for holding my candle in place, so I don't get all this stuff here. So I would say this is a really great way for fixing your candles in place if you're doing quite a traditional arrangement where you know you're going to be using lots of greenery. But because, well, for me, I'm using no fresh materials other than my leaves I'm going to pin on, But I'm not using the conventional flower foam with my fresh greenery and my fresh flowers. We're going to be using dried and artificial materials. So that would be option 1. So if you favour this option, just try and fix everything down as low as possible and just be aware that you end up with this problem area on the top here. You could always put a leaf around the top, double-sided tape and wrap a leaf around the bottom, or a piece of decorative ribbon. There are ways and means around that. Now, the other option would be to take your candle and your lit flame, a bit of heat, or you could do this on your stove top, and cut up some lengths of the wire and to melt the ends and slide it invisibly inside your candle. So what I'm going to do here is measure up. I know I don't want this wire resting on my table. It's not going to go into my candle a particularly long way. So I'm guessing that that's probably 4 centimetres or so. So let's see how that goes. Let's cut them all now. I'm going to go for 2, perhaps I might go for 3 little prongs in each one. I just need to make sure it's really secure. And at this stage, when you come and do your arrangements, are you actually going to light your candles? I rarely light my candles. Although I love having candles, my husband doesn't. So we a little bit of compromise going on in our household. And of course, lighting candles is wonderful, but please, as you know, don't leave any lit candles unattended. So this is what I mean about holding your wire into the flame. You're very close to the flame at this point. So it may be that if you've got a pair of pliers, you might want to hold your wire into the flame using your pliers so that you don't get hurt. And then remembering that end's hot, don't touch it. And then taking your candle, it'll melt its way, and it's so satisfying to do, into the bottom of the candle. You can just see it's slightly discoloured because I've got the coating on this wire. And just leave it for a moment or two. You have to wait for the wax to reset again. So I've got 1 in there, and I might go for, you're going to need at least 2, if not 3. And it's the security thing. Can you get this candle to stand up straight? If you need to fiddle with the candle, if it's not straight, you may find that the little wire prongs fall out, and easy enough just to remelt, reheat the ends and then melt it down. So exactly the same thing. Then holding it in place. Right. Oops. Just trying to let go. And let's do it the 3rd one, just to be sure. So before you, this method is really great to use. I would do 1 candle first, especially if you're using the polystyrene wreath form, and just test how easy it is to get the candles in and out of the wreath base. And if you find it really difficult because the polystyrene will be quite dense, you may favour the other option. And of course, you just run the risk, if you're too heavy-handed when you add your candles to your wreath base, that the wires might ping off. But let me see if I just want to do that one. And again, I'm not going to wobble, but in terms of workmanship, I always say just to test what you've done. And I'm being, a little bit gentle, but they are quite firm in there. So I shall move that candle out of the way. And then the wreath base is dense, so it's not like when you slide your candles into flower foam, if you've ever done that before, and they just go, ooh, and they just ease down. I'm having to crunch the stems in quite firmly. I don't know if you can pick up that noise, but it's almost, it's really, really, a firm crunch. But can you see when I lift that up, there's none of this gubbins going on. So it is a much neater way of doing it. So of course I will be putting my decorations on really neatly, but it just, it's one less thing to worry about, trying to sort of bridge that gap and cover up that bit of wire. And then I can just run my finger around. I can't feel any wires coming on there. But I'm going to take that out because of course I need to decorate first before I move on. So why don't I show you at this stage how to make the little holders for your tea lights if you want to go down the tea light route. So this wire, aluminium wire, I've chosen sort of a cranberry red colour. It's really great to work with, and it's in these lovely smooth round coils, and the wire will bend and manipulate quite easily. But what I will say, if you're very heavy, if you're too heavy-handed and you think, oh gosh, this hasn't quite gone right, and you want to undo what you've made, you'll find it never stretches out to the same smoothness again. So what I'm going to do here is sort of gently, and again, I don't know how much wire I'll need. So it's one that it's a bit like when you use ribbon, you kind of want to keep it on the main reel. So I'm going to sort of push that over there. And then taking my pliers, I just want to sort of create a little nut, a knobble to start with. So I'm going to bend the wire over just to create myself a starting point. So this will be familiar to some of you, I know, but bear with me. So I'm twisting that round. I just made that little sort of hooky bit there. It just gives me something to start coiling my wire around. So coil, 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 around and round. Now, I have got one of these off to the side because it will only take a few moments, but I'm conscious of the fact that you're watching me do this might be slightly dull. So how much wire do you need to coil round? So before I stop, I'm going to measure up. The idea is I'm going to make enough of a wire coil to fit the base of my candle, but I need to support the sides as well. So actually, I need to go base of candle and then a little bit wider as well. So I have got a few more coils to do. I might move this off to the side, natural working position for me. So, I've gone a bit, it's not quite as smooth as I want there, but you'll be taking more time and trouble with this. It's just the pressure of working on live TV that it's just getting a bit wrinkly. Right, what I'm going to do now, making it easy for myself, I'm going to cut off that excess, and that will make it easier if I'm not sort of trailing all that bulk of wire around. So trying to keep it as smooth as possible, as evenly spaced as possible, round and round we go. So it's a little, coiled round like a snail. So when I've got enough wire, what I'm going to use this excess bit of wire to create the stalk that goes into the base. So what I'm going to do here is, having finished it, I've sort of notionally got my wire finished at 12 o'clock at the top. I'm going to give it quite a sharp bend back to the middle. And then I'm going to bend it again so it stands upright. So finger there, bend there, so that when I hold it up, it's like that. And you can imagine that I can push it into my wire foam, into my wreath form, like that. So how do we get the candle to stay in place? When we put it on the edge, and those of you who remember when we made the jewellery before, we sort of popped little shapes out of this. I'm going to use the same technique. Put my candle in position, and then the excess wires around the edge are going to slide up the side a little bit, like that. So it holds it in place. You see, like that? And that's what I've got my washi tape for, because I didn't want this silver showing. So that's why I've got my red toned washi tape off to the side, and I can attach that onto the edge of the little wire base. You can rip this tape, although I would use scissors because it never quite rips neatly enough. And then because my candles aren't very deep, I need to just turn in the edges at the bottom. And there you'd have a little modern candle holder. So if you like this disc shaped business, you could make these little discs and use those as decorative items going around the edge of your container. And then what I'm going to do to show you it does fit, I cut the wire off here and I just cut it straight. I'm going to recut it at an angle, a point, and that just gives me a sharp edge. And then I can put that into my wreath, and that will hold my candle steady. So as I lift that up, you'll see I've got a stalk, it's raised it up. So you've got options here. You could make a candle holder and you could have it resting on the edge of your wreath. You could come, you know, halfway up, a little way up. I would say don't come too tall though, because the taller you come, the more prone to knocking. So although that's quite secure, and especially if you're going to light the candle, you don't want to get into this fire hazard thing. So my idea is I might sort of do a collection of these. I might have a long, you know, a taper candle and then my little tea light candle nestled down between. So just a way of making things a little bit more modern and just switching things up a little bit if you feel that you've done, you know, you've got Christmas arrangements coming out of your ears over the years. So you'll be able to finesse this and make it neater, but it is quite sturdy. You know, I'm quite happy with that. It's not going to slide out, but when you come and make your own coil, you will probably be doing that far neater than I managed to do under pressure of doing it on the camera. So let's set these aside and come back to the wreath form. So I just said it was it's aged. I must at some point have accidentally snipped the string that binds round, so it's got a little bit loose here. So I've got my ever trusty paper covered wire. You could be using garden twine for this if yours isn't very secure. And I would say you don't need to do this step. If you've got a wreath, a straw wreath, and it's all nice and firm, don't do this. But I thought rather than me doing this off camera, you might actually want to see how you could rescue your wreath if it's not looking quite so good. And of course, you won't need to do this on your polystyrene wreath either. So I'm going to stand up here and go round and round with my twine just to hold everything in place. So I've chosen a twine here that is neutral coloured for this sort of just emergency DIY, and I'm thinking that if I don't cover the whole of my wreath with my leaves, at least this binding over looks intentional, and that's what we're all about, making intentional choices with our design work. So I will all the way around, and as you can see, I'm just pulling it nice and securely each time. This is my problem area here, so I just need to make sure that that is all encompassed. So I won't go all the way around, it will take me too long, but just it's this little stretch that was bothering me. But if I was in real life, if I was making this in real life, I would go all the way around, because it just is, you know, it's a bit of workmanship and finessing of what you're doing. So it'll just take me too long to do. So I've got my problem bit under control. So I've gone halfway around, and that'll be good enough for now. And then the beauty of this wire is you don't need to tie a knot, you can just bend it back on itself. I'm going to loosen there, attach it underneath, and I say tie it off, I'm sort of doing a little bit of a knot and a twist. So hopefully you can't see it too much, but I know that's much more secure. So let's get on with decorating. But before we jump in with the decorating, you need to think about where you're going to put your candles. So I shall imagine you've got 4 candles. I have got one over there. I'm trying to reach it without knocking the camera. I think I can. Where do you want to have your candles? So if we're going modern, do you want to have a very traditional placement of the 4 candles on, you know, equally spaced? Or do you want to be grouping them? This is entirely up to you. Do you want to have them off the side? Do you want to have 3 that side, 1 that side? So again, there is a sort of design element of choice around it. But because I'm a conventional person, I'm probably going to go with them in my square formation. So I like to just think about this, and especially because I'm thinking I might not cover the whole of my wreath base with my leaves. I'm thinking I might do some leafage around each candle and then leave a bare section and do leafage around the next. So making the straw base a feature of my arrangement. And again, that might not be to your taste, and you might want to just start putting your leaves on and going all the way around. So I'm going to have my leaves coming in 2 different directions, either side of my candle at the bottom here. I can't quite get my fingers to stretch that far, but I'm hoping that that is sufficiently clear for you. So off on the side, I'm going to have to lean across again with my pins, my fancy leaves, which I'm not going to use just yet, but I'll just move them a little bit closer. And then my bay. So this bay here from my garden isn't the healthiest of bays. So as I pin my leaves on, I need to be a tiny bit selective about which leaves I'm going to use. And if you had loads of time and it was a part of your character, you could be making sure you were using leaves that were the same size and matching them up. But I am just going to bullet a china shop and just go for it. I'm just making sure that I am not using the leaves that look, you know, gnarled and damaged. I am doing a lightweight selection of the leaves. And then with my pins, you've seen me do this before when I did the pinned pomander, and I used a pin that showed up so you could see it. Now that's because you've seen me do that technique already. I'm going to use these pins like my dressmaking pins, because I don't want the pins to show. I just want the leaves to appear. And again, that's a personal choice for you. Do you want your workings to show, or do you want it all to magically fade off into the distance? So I will start pinning my leaves and positioning them. So again, you've got options here. Do you want your leaves to splay off onto the tabletop, or do you want to keep them quite tight around the edge of the leaf? And if you want to have them quite tight, you will need to pin them at the tips as well as the bottom. So I'm pinning the tip firmly in, but I'm going to go a little bit lighter with my pushing in at the other end, because I might want to remove that pin later on. So overlapping. Remember that these materials, these are fresh leaves which will dry out, so they will lift and there'll be a little bit of movement on them, a little they'll start to open up. So don't be too mean about your overlap. And you might want to, you know, if you think your leaves are too wavy, you could always put a second pin in. So it's not a competition to see how few pins you can use. Use as many as you need. And again, if you want to put your pins in to, you know, to create a pattern, you can think more about that than I'm going to do. I'm going for a random effect, and I'm hoping, oops, I just ripped that one there. Pulled my leaf out. Rip down, but I can use my scissors to gouge that out. So not quite so close to the edge this time. Push that down. I'm just going to hold it at the other end, but I think these leaves, I do need to have that extra pin there. And then I would need to go back in and do the same on the inside edge. So I'm going to tuck this leaf underneath, because I want my leaves all going around. Again, it's however you want to do it. I could put that leaf on the top, so I could do that, and I've just got this central leaf there, quite like that actually. So nothing is fixed in stone, but don't go, you know, just take your time and think, you know, how are these leaves, how are they overlapping? How do I want them to sit? So 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to do loads of this because I think you've probably picked up the idea here. And just making sure that any pins on the underside, I've missed that one there again. If you've got pins on the underside, they need to be firmly pushed in. So as it happens, I've kept my leaves just at the edges like this. I'm not pinning anything at the bottom. So again, I've not got any pins that are going to be proud and then be a scratchy surface. So I've got sort of number 1 there, and I could, you know, put in the other leaves at the top. And that's why I left these pins proud to go there. Again, just for time-saving reasons, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to think, these leaves are quite big. So I'll come in the other way now and show you what I meant about creating these little, it's almost like you're creating a little garden around your leaves. So again, just anchor it in. I'm not pushing it in because I think I'm going to have to move that pin in a minute. Pushing it in at the top, not too close to the top because it might rip. And seeing how I did these, I overlap this way, bottom, and I want one in the middle because I don't like the way my leaf's quite long and I don't want it sort of rippling up. One at the end, and then back again. One, oops, at the edge. More pins. Look, where have I put my pins? Over here and at the end. So this is what I meant about my leaves coming in from different directions. So I do need more. I need more leaves, but I will be working on this as you are working later. So this is just so you can see. That's a really big leaf there. Pin. in there and in there. So I've now got this little gappy bit, and that's where I'm going to put my candle. I'm just going to use my scissors, push that in. And actually, I've got one more leaf, just trying to do a little bit of finishing off so it doesn't look too half made. One, it's too big, that pin. Two. That one there, and I do need another new pins. So just starting you off like that. Okay, and then I will take my candle, decide where I want it to go, and again it's quite a firm push, like that, nice and solid. And then what I'm going to do, I haven't got many of my lamb's ears left, which were very expensive, so that's why I've used my bay leaves, because they're cheap and readily available. I'm then going to add in my lamb's ears, and this is where, if you had your candle with the tape, you could have your pin your leaves so that it's sort of curled up. So you probably need some double-sided tape around the bottom, or a bit of glue, or even to fold this tape in half to make it double-sided. And you could disguise your leaves by doing that and getting your leaves to curl around. So with these extra pins in here that I didn't put in firmly, I can start to put these leaves in. So what I might do, I take those out. Oh look, one of my wires has come out. Never mind. I'm going to put this under here and see whether I can get my leaf to pierce through, my candles to pierce through these leaves. They're quite thick. We will have to see whether that works. So putting those in there, rolling them around. So this is where I didn't put my pins in really, didn't push them all the way down, because I knew I would want to move them around a little bit. So there, so I've got a little bit of splay at the edge. And again, this is all down to your individual decorative flair and panache as to what you want to do. And it's going around like that. Like that, pin it over there. And then you do the same on the inside, over the other side. So I'm going to trim off those stalks, so I don't want the bulk. And then I managed to ping out one of my candles there, but fortunately I've got a few more over here. So let's see whether we can get, and what I'm going to do is just sharpen these points if I can, cut them at an angle just to help me pierce through those leaves, because we know it's going to be tough, because we saw how tough it was getting the leaves in. I'm just going to put that down like that. Oops, and it is tough, it is tough. And there you have it, a candle seamlessly attached to the bottom of the leaves there, so they don't show up at all. And then if you wanted to add in your tea lights, you know, alongside, again, I have sharpened that. I could have my tea light there. Can you see there? I was sort of pushing it in, not just from the top, but on the stem, and making sure it's not coming through. The little tea light can drip in there, like that. And then you would have your other placements, so your other four would look like this, and I would do exactly the same thing around those other placements, but then start to build them up decoratively. I mean, do you want to wire in some cinnamon sticks and put them on there? Do you want to go with that very pared back look? I've got these glittery berries. I could cut those off the pick and then, you know, holding them down at the bottom, push them through and get those to stick like that. So you can see what I mean about it being quite a modern look. And then if you really get carried away with the little decorative detail there, perhaps you want to continue that on. So I should cut myself the length of the wire, turn over the end. Just going to move that box for you, and then pinch it into the needle nose pliers, twist it round, and then feed it round again. If you want, you know, get carried away with this sort of leaf, this wire technique. So I could, sometimes it's nice just to replicate some of the techniques you've used, and shirt off, because of course you can't see that wire when you've got it like that, and you might want to put that in as a little bit of a decorative flair over the side. You could position it there so it's silhouetted against the candle. The world is your oyster. But I think if I want that shorter, I'm going to have to cut it shorter, or I could always bend it because it's on a wire and have it in a different form. I quite like that, actually, so you can actually see it from the top, and the stuff that you can't see there because it's hidden, you get to appreciate it there. So I'm probably going to leave the demonstration there, so you've got the technique and you can imagine what I'll be doing later on this afternoon, finishing off, and just to create these little clusters and these gardens. And it may well be that when I come to do the second placement over here, although I talked about perhaps having my greenery leaving a bit of exposed of the some of my straw wreath base exposed, it may be the time I put my leaves on, it's either going to be a really minimum amount of exposed wreath, or actually I might decide I want to cover it in completely. I'll just need to lift these pins up and slice some leaves back underneath. So what I'll do is I'll bring the camera back to me and hold it up, and if it's not particularly clear, of course I always take photographs and I can put those in onto the video afterwards so you can have a look. But just a slightly more modern take on a traditional Advent crown. So I hope you managed to follow along with that, and just the sort of sideways view so that you can have a look. And whenever you put your candles in, it sounds obvious, just try and make sure they're upright, so in the event you do light them, that they're not going to spill sideways. And as ever, I keep saying it, never to leave your lit candles unattended. So what I've done here, I've gone for quite a sparse look. I know it's sparse, but that's because I'm going to repeat things. So once I've got my basic placements in, anything I add to this placement number one, I will replicate in the others. So it may be that I've got a bag of goodies in the side here, and I talked about my little twiggy bits. I could have my twigs going over the top. I've got some tiny variegated holly, which I might pin in using my pearl-headed pins in the red. But in my bag of goodies here, I've also got some really small pine cones as well. So if I want more of that sort of woodsy look, I could be wiring in the pine cones. And you just need to make sure when you do that, you're using quite a sturdy wire. It's not difficult pushing the wires into the wreath form, but because it is dense, there is that, if you use wires that are too lightweight, they're going to buckle. But I might put wire up some of those. And of course, you've got your hot glue gun, miss out the wiring altogether, traditional wiring, and get your hot glue gun out. Orange slices, you decide. So I will probably make up one of these sort of little garden areas first and see that I liked it. And then I would make the other three up at the same time, as if you were doing a little production line. So I'm rather enjoying going to finishing that off later. So what I'm going to do now is draw this recording to a close, and I hope to see you next week with the cinnamon box. And then I will stop the recording for the ladies that are here. And then we will take you off mute, and we can go through to our live Q&A and find out who will be making and creating with me later on.